December 1942. The Sahara Desert. Tonight, the wind isn't the only sound breaking the silence of the North African night. A lean, stripped-down vehicle, bristling with twin .50 caliber machine guns, races toward an Axis airfield. This is not a conventional patrol. This is a strike by the British SAS, Special Air Service, pioneering deep-penetration warfare using a simple, agile machine, the Willys MB Jeep. This episode dives into the Jeep's ferocious global deployment. We trace how the Long-Range Desert Group, LRDG, perfected it into a mobile fortress, and how this small workhorse dominated terrains from the frozen Eastern Front, thanks to the Lend-Lease program and its robust Go Devil engine, to the relentless mud of the China-Burma-India theater. We uncover the hidden logistical battles, the mechanics of the Ordnance Corps scavenging for parts, the critical role of the Red Ball Express supply chain, and why General Eisenhower famously ranked the Jeep as one of the 3 most decisive weapons of the war. Finally, we track the Jeep's ultimate victory, its return home. It went from a wartime tool to a cultural icon, giving birth to the civilian Jeep, CJ5, winning the bitter trademark wars over its 7-slot grille, and laying the undeniable foundation for every modern SUV today. Join us now to explore the ultimate legacy of the Jeep, the resilient machine that changed modern warfare and the automotive world forever. The British Long-Range Desert Group, master navigators of the North African wilderness, were among the first to fully weaponize the Jeep platform, pioneering tactics that would be adopted globally. They quickly abandoned their heavier trucks for the faster, more agile Jeep. These vehicles were stripped bare, painted in sand colors, and fitted with specialized equipment like radiator condensers, sand mats, and massive racks of jerrycans for water and fuel, allowing them to penetrate hundreds of miles behind Axis lines for sustained reconnaissance and weather reporting missions. The Special Air Service took the LRDG's concept and added terrifying firepower. The classic SAS Jeep was a mobile killing machine, completely unarmored, stripped to maximize speed, and bristling with multiple heavy machine guns, often twin-mounted Vickers K guns or the formidable Browning .50 caliber. Their tactical doctrine relied entirely on the Jeep's agility, allowing them to burst into enemy airfields or camps, saturate the area with fire, and vanish back into the desert before any serious counterattack could be mounted. For major airborne operations, the Jeep was the key to immediate mechanized mobility. Preparing a Jeep for glider deployment required incredible logistical precision. The tires were often removed, the windshield folded, and the vehicle bolted directly to the glider floor. Upon landing, paratroopers could rapidly unbolt and reassemble the vehicle. This process ensured that command elements and vital anti-tank weapons were motorized within minutes of touching down, dramatically increasing the punch and survivability of the airborne divisions in operations like Market Garden. Under the Lend-Lease program, thousands of Jeeps were shipped to the Soviet Union. On the Eastern Front, the Red Army instantly prized the vehicle. Its low weight and powerful 4x4 system made it far superior to domestic vehicles in handling the infamous Rasputitsa, the season of deep mud, and the vast distances. They were used extensively for command, liaison, and towing light anti-tank and mortar guns, earning a reputation for reliability that greatly exceeded Soviet-built alternatives under the brutal conditions of their long, continuous offensive. The Jeep faced arguably its most brutal endurance test in the CBI theater. Here, the challenge was not sand or snow, but relentless monsoons, mountain trails, and dense jungle. The Jeep's small, maneuverable footprint was essential for navigating the narrow, muddy tracks of the Burma Road. Its simplicity was a lifesaver, as sophisticated repairs were impossible in the remote, high-humidity environment, confirming that its low-tech resilience was its most valuable combat asset. The Jeep's relatively lightweight and 4-cylinder engine made it remarkably fuel-efficient compared to the massive consumption of tanks and heavy trucks. This was a critical logistical advantage. However, the sheer number of Jeeps required millions of gallons of gasoline to be delivered daily. The vehicle's simple, standardized fuel requirement was supplied primarily through the iconic jerrycan, a German-designed fuel container copied by the Allies. The Jeep's ability to carry dozens of these cans ensured that it could extend its range far beyond any established fuel depot. Operating in environments ranging from the frozen Soviet steppes to the scorching North African deserts demanded constant vigilance regarding lubricant. Engine oil, transmission fluid, and chassis grease were consumable assets that determined the Jeep's lifespan. Field mechanics used specific military-grade lubricants that could withstand extreme thermal variations. The simplicity of the Go Devil engine was a boon, as it required relatively straightforward oil changes and could tolerate standard oil types, simplifying the supply chain immensely. Despite the robust engineering of the drivetrain, the tires were the most frequently replaced item on any active Jeep. The standard 6.00 to 16 bias-ply tires were rugged but constantly battled shrapnel, sharp rocks, and punishing overloading. Every Jeep carried a crucial spare tire, and the sheer volume of replacements required shipping thousands of tires overseas weekly. The ability of the simple bolted wheel rim to be serviced quickly in the field, often with nothing more than tire irons and a foot pump, was key to maintaining the vehicle's mobility. The Jeep's aggressive speed, which defined advances like those led by General Patton, created immense logistical gaps. To bridge these gaps, massive transport operations, most famously the Red Ball Express, were created to funnel fuel and ammunition from port cities to forward depots. The Jeep became the last-mile delivery vehicle, taking urgent, priority cargo directly from these massive truck convoys and delivering it to the very front lines, a task requiring speed, agility, and its rugged off-road capability. In the chaotic reality of field operations, fuel quality was highly variable. The Jeep often ran on gasoline contaminated with dirt, water, or even kerosene. Fortunately, the Go Devil engine's low compression ratio and simple L-head design made it remarkably tolerant of low-octane, poor-quality fuel, unlike the high-performance, high-compression engines found in many German vehicles. This mechanical forgiveness was an unintentional advantage that kept thousands of Jeeps running reliably when other vehicles would have failed. The Jeep was a teaching tool for thousands of inexperienced young soldiers. The simplicity of its L-head engine and robust, exposed components meant that drivers could often perform emergency repairs themselves using only the basic tool kit carried under the seat. Changing a punctured tire, replacing a simple brake cable, or cleaning a fouled carburetor were tasks performed at the roadside under fire. This reliance on the operator for primary maintenance kept the vehicle fleet moving rapidly, proving that simplicity in design is the ultimate form of logistical strength. The military maintained a sophisticated, tiered repair system to handle damage, known as the Echelon system. Echelon 1 consisted of the driver and co-driver making minor fixes. Echelon 2 saw the unit's own mechanics, usually a few skilled men with a mobile workshop, addressing more complex issues like transmission swaps. Finally, Echelon 3 involved fixed base depots and the Ordnance Corps, where entire engines were rebuilt and frames were professionally straightened. This system ensured that a damaged Jeep was never truly abandoned. It simply moved up the chain of repair until it could be salvaged. Despite the standardized parts system, the reality of frontline combat often meant relying on scavenging. Where official supply lines were cut or too slow, mechanics quickly became masters of battlefield archaeology, meticulously stripping the wrecks of destroyed Jeeps for any functional component, a usable axle, an intact headlight, or a good starter motor. This culture of improvisation and cannibalization became a vital, unofficial layer of the maintenance effort, ensuring that a single totaled vehicle could resurrect two others. The Ordnance Corps were the unsung heroes of the motorized army. They were the highly skilled specialists responsible for the difficult Echelon 3 and 4 repairs, operating from vast, temporary motor pools deep within Allied lines. These depots performed engine transplants, chassis realignment, and complete body rebuild. The sheer scale of their operation, processing thousands of vehicles monthly, was a manufacturing miracle in itself, transforming damaged, non-functional Jeeps back into combat-ready assets with relentless efficiency. The Jeep's reputation for resilience was legendary. Countless accounts exist of Jeeps surviving heavy shrapnel damage, bullet-riddled bodies, and even minor explosions, only to be patched up and driven out. The ease with which the flat body panels could be repaired, often just by welding on a piece of scrap metal, meant the Army was reluctant to write them off. A Jeep's final form often told the story of its entire service history, displaying a patchwork of different shades of olive drab paint, a testament to its survival. The Willys MB was perhaps the most personalized vehicle in the entire Allied fleet. Soldiers quickly developed an intimate bond with their Jeeps, treating them not as military assets, but as essential companions. This bond was manifested through the widespread practice of assigning colorful nicknames: Lil Lulu, Blitz Buggy, the Reluctant Dragon, often painted in bold letters on the hood or windshield. This personalization, frequently violating military rules, was a critical way for soldiers to assert human identity in a dehumanizing environment, turning an impersonal tool into a trusted comrade. For the forward observer, the scout, or the field commander, the Jeep became much more than transport. It was a mobile home, an office, and a temporary fortress. Its simple structure was adapted for everything: sleeping, cooking over the engine block, storing personal belongings, and even writing letters home. This psychological dependence on the Jeep's resilience was absolute. When a soldier drove his Jeep, he carried his entire life, his mission, and his best chance of survival, cementing the vehicle as the single most important factor in his immediate existence. The chaos of convoy movement and combat patrols necessitated the development of nonverbal communication. Jeep drivers across all Allied forces quickly learned a universal language of simple hand signals and light flashes. These quick, silent gestures, indicating an obstacle, warning of enemy activity, or signaling a speed change, spoke volumes without risking radio interception. This common language, born from necessity and unique to the open-top Jeep driver experience, forged a quiet sense of solidarity and shared trust among the men at the spearhead of the advance. As the Allies swept across Europe and the Pacific, the Jeep became the immediate, tangible symbol of liberation. For populations recovering from occupation, the sight of the distinctively boxy vehicle, often with a smiling GI at the wheel, signified the end of tyranny and the arrival of freedom. It was a democratic vehicle, unpretentious, efficient, and approachable, making it the perfect countersymbol to the heavy, menacing, and exclusive armored vehicles of the Axis. The Jeep was the first piece of America many liberated citizens ever saw. In an army defined by marching, the Jeep offered the invaluable gift of mobility. This was not merely logistical, it was psychological. The ability to drive a fast, powerful 4x4 vehicle, navigating obstacles and choosing one's own route, provided the driver with a powerful, almost intoxicating sense of agency and control. For young soldiers enduring the horror of war, the raw, unfiltered experience of driving the Jeep became a source of pride, exhilaration, and relief, providing a momentary escape from the crushing weight of infantry life. The Willys MB was an immediate propaganda star for the U.S. government. It was prominently featured in war bond campaigns and factory posters as the ultimate symbol of American industrial efficiency and ingenuity. In stark contrast to the massive, expensive German Panzers, the Jeep represented the democratic ideal: a simple, affordable, and highly versatile tool that could be produced faster and in greater numbers than anything the Axis could field. It proved that superior engineering, not overwhelming size, would win the production war. Hollywood wasted no time in integrating the Jeep into its wartime narrative. The vehicle quickly became the quintessential backdrop and foreground element in propaganda films, newsreels, and training shorts. Its appearance on the silver screen was instrumental in cementing its image in the minds of the civilian public, visually linking the small, rugged 4x4 with bravery, urgency, and the continuous advancement of Allied forces. Its inclusion was mandatory to convey authenticity and speed in any combat scene. The Jeep found a vital voice through the writing of Ernie Pyle, the Pulitzer Prize-winning war correspondent. Pyle traveled extensively by Jeep, living alongside the common infantrymen and writing about their daily struggles and triumph. He often featured the vehicle in his hugely popular columns, describing its personality, reliability, and the sheer affection the soldiers had for it. Through Pyle's intimate, widely read accounts, the Jeep transcended its mechanical identity and acquired a collective, beloved personality for those on the home front. The Jeep's vital contribution to the war effort was officially and famously recognized by none other than General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Eisenhower, the supreme commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, publicly declared the Jeep to be one of the 3 decisive American weapons that won the war, ranking it alongside the C-47 Dakota transport plane and the bazooka. This powerful endorsement, coming from the highest echelon of Allied command, solidified its place in military history as an indispensable piece of war-winning equipment. Perhaps the most relatable depiction of the Jeep was found in the military cartoons of Bill Mauldin, particularly those featuring the weary infantrymen Willie and Joe. Mauldin's cartoons, published in Stars and Stripes, frequently depicted a battered, overloaded Jeep struggling through the mud and chaos of the European front. This depiction, often showing the vehicle itself looking as tired and resolute as the soldiers, provided a darkly humorous, authentic reflection of frontline life that resonated deeply with both the troops and the American public. When the war concluded, countless servicemen were desperate to bring their trusty companions, their Jeeps, home. For many, the vehicle was a literal lifesaver and a repository of combat memories. However, military regulations strictly forbade the private sale of active assets, leading to a massive wave of emotional and often illegal attempts by soldiers to smuggle or purchase their specific vehicles. This desperate attachment underscored the depth of the bond formed under fire, setting the stage for huge civilian demand. The U.S. government faced the colossal logistical task of disposing of hundreds of thousands of surplus Jeep. These vehicles were shipped back to military depots and sold off in massive public auctions. This created a global paradox. The most iconic war machine was suddenly available to anyone. Farmers, small businesses, and foreign governments eagerly snapped up the robust, inexpensive 4x4S, accelerating the vehicle's spread and ensuring that the Willys MB's design legacy would immediately touch every corner of the civilian world. Willis Overland, recognizing the unprecedented civilian demand, moved quickly to capitalize on their iconic design. In 1945, they launched the Civilian Jeep, or CJ2A. While functionally identical to its military predecessor, the CJ2A featured key changes for the public market. Larger civilian headlights, a hinged tailgate, a passenger-side toolbox, and a lower compression engine. Crucially, it retained the core Go Devil engine and the robust 4x4 system, marketing itself successfully as the universal vehicle. The civilian Jeep found its first and most vital market in American agriculture. Its sturdy 4x4 capability allowed it to navigate fields and muddy access roads far better than standard farm truck. More importantly, the Power Takeoff PTO, which had been largely dropped from the military MB, was heavily promoted in the CJ. This feature allowed the Jeep to power machinery like hay balers, sawmills, and generators, transforming it into an affordable, multi-purpose, motorized farm implement. The auctioning of surplus military Jeeps and the aggressive export of the new civilian Jeep ensured its immediate global dispersion. Thousands of MBs and GPWs flooded markets in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. This influx provided the foundation for utility transport in developing nations and directly inspired local manufacturing efforts. The sight of the rugged Jeep navigating remote terrain became common worldwide, laying the crucial groundwork for the global phenomenon of the sport utility vehicle, or SUV. the tiny Bantam car company, whose designer, Karl Probst, drew the first successful blueprint, initiated a legal fight for the ownership of the Jeep name. Willys Overland, the mass producer, countered, arguing that the public associated the vehicle and the name with their product. This bitter, complex trademark battle ultimately resulted in Willys winning the rights to the name Jeep, creating an ironic historical footnote. The company that didn't invent the design secured its eternal identity. The most crucial legal maneuver for the brand came when Willys successfully secured a trademark for the signature 7-slot vertical grille. Recognizing that the grille was the single most defining visual feature, Willys fought to ensure that no other automotive company could replicate that specific design element. This legal victory established the visual DNA of the Jeep brand, creating an instantly recognizable logo and transforming a functional design element into invaluable intellectual property that endures to this day. Under the civilian leadership of Willys and its successors, the Jeep transitioned from pure utility to a desirable lifestyle brand. Marketing shifted away from just farming and utility to emphasize adventure, freedom, and rugged individuality. The open-top nature, the ability to go anywhere, and the inherent connection to wartime heroism created a powerful consumer narrative. The Jeep was not just a vehicle, it was an invitation to explore the world off the beaten path. The global demand for the Jeep extended far beyond American exports. Willys recognized the value of licensing its design. The design was famously produced under license by Hotchkiss in France, where it served the French military for decades, and by Mitsubishi in Japan, which produced its own long-lived line of Jeep derivatives. This global licensing strategy solidified the Willys MB's design as a universal blueprint for light military and utility vehicles worldwide. The Jeep is the undeniable ancestor of the modern sport utility vehicle, SUV. The principles established by the Willys MB, a rugged, boxy body combined with high ground clearance, four-wheel drive, and a focus on utility over comfort, were revolutionary. These characteristics proved so popular in the civilian sector that they laid the foundation for virtually every successful SUV and off-road vehicle that followed, including early models from Land Rover and Toyota, confirming the Jeep's massive, lasting impact on automotive design. The civilian Jeep line continued the legacy of the Willys MB. The CJ5, introduced in 1955, became one of the longest-running and most successful versions of the Jeep, defining the post-war off-road vehicle for 2 decades. It retained the core military ruggedness but offered continuous, albeit minor, engineering upgrades, including more powerful engines and improved comfort, satisfying a public hungry for authentic adventure. Although the basic design originated in World War II, the Jeep remained the primary light utility vehicle through the Korean War and well into the Vietnam War. Its small size was perfectly suited for the dense jungles and rice paddies of Southeast Asia, where larger trucks were useless. The Jeep's familiar shape served as a medical transport, command vehicle, and forward scout in 2 more major conflicts, cementing its status as the ubiquitous light military vehicle of the entire Cold War era. The success of the Willys MB did not go unnoticed globally. Its popularity directly inspired fierce competitors, most notably the British Land Rover and the Japanese Toyota Land Cruiser. These vehicles adopted and refined the Jeep's core principles: robust ladder frame, 4x4, and rugged simplicity, creating a new global market for utility vehicles that the Jeep itself had pioneered. The competition ultimately pushed Willys toward necessary innovation. By the mid-1980s, market demands for better safety, comfort, and highway performance required a major design overhaul. The CJ line was retired, giving way to the Jeep Wrangler YJ. While controversial among purists, initially featuring rectangular headlights, the Wrangler successfully modernized the Jeep concept, preserving the core off-road capability, the removable doors, and the folding windshield that made the MB famous. While the CJ/Wrangler line maintained the open-top military spirit, the broader Jeep legacy extended into the family vehicle market. Models like the Wagoneer and later the Grand Cherokee leveraged the powerful 4x4 image and engineering resilience inherited from the MB. The original military DNA, the ability to conquer any terrain, was successfully repackaged into premium, comfortable vehicles for the civilian masses, proving the ultimate versatility of the brand's core identity. By the late 1950s, the U.S. military recognized the need for a modern replacement for the aging Willys MB design, leading to the development of the M151 Military Utility Tactical Truck, or MUT. Designed by Ford, the MUT represented a major technical leap, shifting from the Jeep's solid axles to four-wheel independent suspension. While offering superior speed and ride quality, this advanced suspension also led to controversial handling issues that made the vehicle prone to rollovers under certain conditions, a stark contrast to the stable simplicity of the MB. The Jeep's influence was so profound that countries across the world continued to rely on licensed or heavily inspired versions for decades. In France, Hotchkiss built the M201, an exact copy of the Willys MB, which served the French army until the 1980s. Meanwhile, companies in Japan, Mitsubishi, and India, Mahindra, successfully built their own variant. This global reliance confirms that the core 4x4 utility design established in 1941 became the universal template for light tactical vehicles well into the post-war era. The final military iteration based directly on the original Willys design was the M38A1, which featured a more rounded body and the high-hood F-head engine. Production of this Willys-based lineage officially ceased in the early 1970s. This marked the end of the direct line of the vehicle that had served continuously through World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. The sheer length of its military service, spanning over 3 decades, is almost unparalleled in modern vehicle history. In the 1980s, the U.S. Army officially replaced the light utility M151 MUT with the massive HMMWV, high-mobility multipurpose wheeled vehicle, popularly known as the Humvee. This transition reflected a fundamental shift in military doctrine, moving toward vehicles that offered superior armor, greater payload, and higher mobility in modern warfare scenarios. While the Humvee was physically and technically a world away from the Jeep's enduring legacy was the lesson it taught, that the mobility of the light support vehicle is just as decisive as the firepower of the tank. Today, the original Willys MB and Ford GPW are revered museum pieces, highly sought after by collectors and restorers globally. A thriving community dedicates itself to preserving these vehicles in their original wartime configuration, complete with period-correct equipment, markings, and paint. This preservation effort ensures that future generations can witness, touch, and learn from the actual steel that formed the workhorse of democracy long after the factories that built them ceased their wartime production.